to RotoGrinders Today. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderHD. BlenderHD. You're going to follow me on Twitter. And it's Thursday, June 6th. We'll be taking a look at some early MLB action on DraftKings. We got a three-game slate. We got props. We got Pick'em. If we're going to talk about props and Pick'em, we're going to bring in the proprietor of Chiefs Prop Shop. It's Chief Justice 06, Will Priester. You can join the prop shop in the RotoGrinders Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. It's free. I don't know why it is free, but it's free. You go in there. They talk about props and pick them all 24/7. No matter the sport, it could be golf. It could be esports. It could be baseball. It could be anything. Hit that thumbs up button on your way in the door. You know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell to always know when we go live. Crunch time. There'll be a crunch time for this early slate. I believe at 12:40, maybe sometime 1, around there. You'll see the thumbnail here on YouTube, and obviously we have Grinders Live and Crunch Time later today for the main slate. So Will, we always seem to meet on Thursdays, where it's kind of Thursdays are always slow in the MLB streets, right? It's a travel day for some teams. We get kind of these little small split slates. Not as much props going on, not as much pick 'em. But 3-game slate, let's just be clear. Because we're going to talk about buckets of pitchers. We're going to talk about tiers of stacks. On a slate that only has 6 pitchers and 6 teams, nothing is at nothing is out of play. Is there anything out of play on this slate that, like, if you wanted to make a lineup that only stacks 3 guys from a team or something, like that's fine. If you want to play a batter or 2 against your pitcher, that's not crazy, right? I wouldn't play 5. I wouldn't play a stack and the pitcher, but I mean, you could do some more crazy things because the opportunity cost is so low. Unless you have some hot take where, you're Xing out this pitcher or Xing out this stack because you just have no confidence in it whatsoever. But I'm going to assume that with these totals, the lowest total is 3.38 for Kansas City, and the highest is 4.29 for Seattle. I mean, we're not dealing with the cream of the crop here on either side of the ledger, batters or pitchers.
Yeah, neither. And I mean, usually on a slate this size, Blender, I just play everybody. Now, I will say I'm probably not going to play Cade Povich today, but, that's just because he's 8,200 and the projection is semi-crappy on him. It's not great on everybody. I mean, it's even worse for Brady Singer, and we'll get into that. But he's probably about the only person I intend to not play today. Everybody else, I'll probably play at pitcher, and and I'm for sure playing every bat on the slate, no doubt about it.
Just every bat? It doesn't matter? And any of them? All of them?
I'm playing probably – well, yeah, I probably am. But a slate this small, it's kind of I think we talked about this last week when we had a show, Blender, where the range of outcomes today is much lower than a 12-game slate. So, for instance, I mean, in terms of catchers, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 – there's technically 6 catchers, but some of them play first or second. But my larger point is, if Bo Naylor hits a home run today, and he's the only catcher that hits a home run and you don't have him, you're most likely not going to win first place. Most likely. You get what I'm saying? Because if everybody else scores, yeah.
Right. Well, this is the type of slate where if whoever scores the most is going to be in the winning line. I mean, any one-off guy at any position, right? With some shortstop hits 2 home runs, you need them. It doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
You're gonna need them. End of story.
Yeah. Yeah. Period. And so that's the thing. When and I'm not trying to I'm trying to simplify this, Blender. So my brain is trying to simplify the statements, but the smaller the range of outcomes, the wider my player pool is going to get. But typically it's a smaller range of outcomes because there are less events that are going to take place that day. So that's what we're talking about here.
So let's look at pitching. I'm bringing up the bat projections, and I mean, no one's that expensive. I mean, you have Kikuchi at $9K. Bybee at 8,400, Wu at 8,200, Povich, who's making his first career start at 7,800. Brady Singer's up there at 8,900. The cheap pitcher on the slate is JP Sears facing Seattle in Oakland at 5,600.
And I hate JP Sears, but he has to get played today. I hate it, but I don't. It doesn't matter.
Right. Seattle's a big strikeout team. They're playing in Oakland, which is a great pitcher's park. The thing about Sears is that we're playing a slate where I'm playing 3 lineups today. So I mean, I'm going to choose my path, and I'm going to play 3 instances, and I'm let the fantasy gods do what they may. Putting together a lineup with Sears, like it's not like anything that expensive. Like the only thing that Sears lineups really give you is maybe a Cleveland stack fully. I mean, like if you take a look at the batter prices, so we have lineups for the first 2 games. The 337 Mariners A's game, we may not even have one. We'll be close to having lineups by the time it locks. But like even at these prices for like the Orioles, they have multiple like 5K, 6K batters. The Guardians, kind of similarly, right? They got Jose Ramirez, they got Jimenez up there, Naylor up there. Like if you try to put together a lineup, there's enough guys where you got guys under 4K that project well. You got Austin Hayes, you got George Springer, underpriced probably. You got Kyle Manzardo. You got obviously Seattle's cheap for their implied team total. I mean, Julio Rodriguez at 5,200 doesn't even rank the bank. He's not a 6K player. You got Dylan Moore. You got when you put together lineups, it's like you don't even. I mean, I tried putting together a Sears lineup, and it's like I stacked one team and had like 3 one-offs, and it's like I still have 1,400 left on the table. It's like,
yeah,
I don't have to. I don't like instead of playing Santander, I could play Austin Hayes and then not even have to play Sears at all. I don't think Sears is a requirement, but I don't think he's necessary. On a slate where there may not be as much scoring, like if you predict the slate to be lower scoring, I mean, why do you have to spend the money on the bats, right? Like if Julio Rodriguez and Gunnar Henderson and Joe Ram only scores 9 points, like you're not going to need to spend the salary there. But if JP Sears only throws like 3 strikeouts and gives up 4 runs, like a 0 at pitcher is not going to do you as well. So I like Sears. I like the price. I'm not sure how necessary paying down a pitcher is today. The problem is that I don't know who's worth spending up for either. I would choose Bybee. It's the highest projected right now. Bybee and Kikuchi, primarily for leash than anything else. I feel more confident with Bybee than Kikuchi against Baltimore. But the guy that I the least who's going to be owned, who makes me kind of want to play A stacks, is that like I already have props in, and I have Brian Woo's under 16.5 outs at minus 110.
We're on the opposite end of the spectrum today, but I get it. I understand because they've been pulling.
Wu would have to be very efficient. Pitches. I mean, Wu is going to pitch what 80 pitches. I mean, I know it's the A's, but you really think he could get 6 innings in 80 pitches?
He might. He's done it pretty much every start. That's the problem. Like, so here's my thing, Blender. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm not sure. So I'm taking a stand against a bad team. Let's talk through that. So this is one of those situations where we're on the opposite end of the spectrum, but for different reasons. Does he have a hard cap, or are they just saying, hey, he hit 6 innings, you've done your job, come on out, right? Because obviously he could pitch a full game if they were extending him. Because like he's gotten through 6 innings in some of these in like 72 pitches. And I'm being like facetious, but like that's where he's been. And so my question is it more of an innings cap and time through the order than a pitches cap? And I'm not 100% sure either way. So I'm just taking a stand against a bad team. That's really all I'm doing.
No,
Or
I
perceived
understand.
bad team.
And me, what I'm doing is going from a median standpoint. As long as the A's put up some resistance, it's hard for him to go past 5 innings.
Right.
But if they don't put up any, I mean, the thing about Brian Wu is that he doesn't walk many people. I mean, like, the thing is that he throws the ball mostly over the plate, so that a lot of, like Mr. Girk says in chat, he's been getting 6 innings with only 65 pitches because of good BABIP. I mean, it's as simple as that. Is that when he's lasting 2 or 3 pitches per batter. It's not that hard to do that as long as they're ground outs, as long as they're fly outs. And I know the A's suck, but
and it's not sustainable to go. This isn't going to last. I'm just saying.
That's the point.
Yeah. It's not going to last. My thoughts are. Are they just pulling them at the innings cap, or is it the pitches? You get what I'm saying? So I'm playing the other side and saying, hey, if this fails today, no big deal. But if they're going to extend them, then I think he can get.
You think that regardless of pitches, he's going to pitch 6 innings, even if he's pitching like 90 pitches, 95 pitches.
I'll give him 85. Yeah.
I'm just relying on the fact that it's not sustainable. The thing is that, you agree with me that it's not sustainable. You just don't think it ends. You just don't think it ends today against the A's, right?
Well,
this was a different team.
Yeah, I think so. I think he can go more than 70 pitches. So that's why, and we've got him projected for 79. So that's putting about it. The bet has him about at 80. So I'm saying if he's at 5 2/3 innings at 82 pitches, like and Blender, what I'm saying is he hasn't had like a lot of runs. Like maybe he's given up a run, only given up 3 hits or something. And obviously that's speculation, but I'm saying at that point, it's like, are they going to pull him at 5 2/3 at 82 pitches when he hasn't really got hit around? Now, if he gets knocked around, then the day's over. He's coming out. But
right, that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping for the A's putting up one. I mean, really, the margin for error for this is like if the A's put up like 2 runs, like I think under 16.5 outs is a pretty good bet.
Right? Yeah, I got you. Listen, and that's the thing. Like we understand both sides, so we're good. Yeah,
it's the A's. Dude, I know it's the A's. He's going to pitch 4 innings, 38 pitches with 7 strikeouts. Like it's well within the range of outcomes. But from a DFS perspective, though, I'm refreshing this.
He's for sure behind Tanner Bybee by a wide margin. And and I know I cut you off, so I'm so sorry about that. But for them to have only a 13% ownership difference is wild to me, because Bybee's for sure got the leash and Wu for sure does not have the perceived leash, at least not yet.
Right. So, like, for DFS purposes, I'll let 40-50% of the field take on a pitcher that if they get hit for a couple of runs, like they ain't going that far. At least Bybee could pitch 100 pitches. Kikuchi could pitch 100 pitches. Even Sears, they let Sears go. Sears can pitch 100 pitches against the Mariners. I'm not sure how much of a leash Povich is going to get, but I mean, he's been pitching like a normal pitcher in the minors. So, like, it's not the only reason he wouldn't get a long leash is if he's not like necessarily pitching all that well. And at that point, he's probably not scoring many points for me anyway. And then we also got Brady Singer here. And I don't know what's happened to Brady Singer, but maybe not good. Maybe not. I mean, he's not even striking people out enough. I mean, like his strikeout rate has gone down.
His projection is lower than JP Sears today. Like, that's all we need to know. It's insane.
And he's facing Cleveland, and you typically don't get many strikeouts against Cleveland to begin with.
Yep.
I mean, if I'm gonna X out anyone, I think $8,900 Brady Singer would be the first one on my list, and the Povich may be the second. But there's a case to be made for Povich. Povich could either be good or also really bad, right? Yeah. So, like on the 3-game slate, with the opportunity cost being so low, you want to take a shot that like Povich isn't actually bad and his first start in the majors goes well. That's also decent leverage because I think Toronto may be the highest owned team on the slate. That's why that's the case for Povich. But I feel if I feel most comfortable with Bybee and Kikuchi, even though, I mean, I think the Toronto-Baltimore game is the game that you should be looking at for hitting on today's slate. But Kikuchi can still do well, and Baltimore can still do well.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So if we were to put this, if we put this in buckets, and we're considering ownership when it comes to the buckets and the tiers. Remember, we always consider ownership. We always have 3 buckets. Have we agreed that even Brady Singer still makes a bucket? That there is still a case on a 3-game slate that you can play Brady Singer, even though in my 3 lineups I will not be playing him.
Yeah,
you shouldn't be Xing out Brady Singer.
For the record, if I'm playing 3 lineups, I wouldn't be playing Brady Singer either. Like Brady Singer is like 20 or more to me. Like even if I'm under 20 lineups, I'm not getting the Brady Singer for what it's worth.
Okay, but so he makes the third. He at least makes the 3rd bucket because he gets into a lineup at some point. Is there anyone that you would consider a first bucket pitcher? Is that Bybee?
I mean it's
for this slate.
It's probably Kikuchi, to be honest. Like Kikuchi probably has more raw strikeout upside than anybody on this slate, actually. Like just in terms of raw strikeout upside, like. And not that he's going to do this today, because I don't think that's coming today, but I feel like I could be wrong, Blender. I think the last time he faced Baltimore, he had one of those upside strikeout games. I mean, I think it was, 8, 9, 10, whatever. I don't think that happens today, but I'm just saying that to support the fact that, listen, he has raw strikeout upside.
Yeah, it was on the 15th. So May 15th, 9 strikeouts.
Okay.
21 fantasy points.
And
he still gave up 6 hits, a home run.
Exactly. Let's talk.
Gave up 20.
21 fantasy points on 9 strikeouts means, as you talked about, Blender, something you said earlier, right before this, Baltimore could do well and Kikuchi could do well. Both could be true in this situation.
Okay, so Bybee and Kikuchi in the first bucket. Would the second bucket be Sears and Wu?
I think the third bucket, because I don't like Singer or Povich.
Okay. Okay, so I mean,
let me just say
I agree with that. Even though I would move Wu for GPPs to the 3rd bucket for me, but I get it. Me personally, I'd rather take a shot on Cade Povich at low ownership against the highest owned stack than play Brian Wu at like 40 to 50% ownership. Like
I agree with that theoretically for sure.
Right.
I have a rule for myself, and it's not like, unless they're like an elite prospect that I know about, I don't take first start pitchers like hardly ever. But that's just a hard fast rule. And typically I target them, even on a small slate. I do think one of the biggest things, and I know we talked about JP Sears not needing JP Sears, but if I don't want to overlook the fact that JP Sears has like one of the best point per dollar projections on the slate. In fact, it is the best point per dollar projection on the slate. And like the bat is not the end all be all. So I want to make that clear in terms of it's not right every day. That's what I'm saying. But JP Sears doesn't typically have these types of projections. Like that's really where I'm headed with this. And so you have to understand the bat is really a long-term projection system. And so the fact that I think this projection is beefed up because Seattle's striking out so much this season, like that weighed really heavy for me to see Sears projected at 13 fantasy points, where if he was facing Houston, he'd be projected for like 8 or 9. Like it'd be so like for me, this is more about the possible upside for Sears than anything, because the strikeouts have just been there for Seattle. And I think the bat has just had to take that into account now that we're pretty much, a lot closer to mid-season. Like that's a big deal for me, which is why I made sure I wanted to keep
But you also have to
Sears
realize
in there.
that
Like, this is
Seattle also has plenty of power. So from a median
yeah,
standpoint, like we're going to go into stacks now and put them on the tier list. Sears is the best point per dollar pitcher projected in the bat, and the Seattle Mariners are the best point per dollar stack in the bat also. So it's one of those
yep,
high variance scenarios that I always talk about where ownership, really the range of outcomes. I mean, I talked about it the other day with Gausman. It's like he could do really well or really badly, and like you could play either side of it. Even though the median value, when both sides' median values look good, that typically means there's a skew somewhere where the average, like when someone guy does great, it bumps up their mean up, and when the
yeah.
stack does really good, it bumps up their mean up. So I look at I think Sears is going to be owned. I think Seattle Mariners are going to be owned. I mean, everyone's going to be owned to some extent. And if you judge that JP Sears is going to be more owned than the Mariners stacks, I would want to play the Mariners stacks. And if you get a sense that more people are going to play Mariners stacks over Sears, then I want to play more Sears. So those are the types of situations that I'm looking for. So let's talk about that game. I mean, the game that doesn't have lineups in, the Mariners and the A's. Just to put things into perspective, the stack projections in the bat, the lowest projected team raw point wise, stack wise, is like 31-ish, and the highest is 36-ish. So it's like a 5-point gap between stacks, which is not that much. It's not ridiculous at all. Some teams are more expensive than others, obviously, and some teams may be a little bit more owned than others. But this F tier down here, it's a 3-game slate. There's no stack that is just completely, you just X out them completely on a slate this size. But we do have the Oakland A's with the lowest projection against Brian Wu. I mean, they're not F tier, but should they be higher than D? And Will is frozen. Well, there we go. Will's gone. I don't know. I'm gonna put for the time being, I'm gonna put the A's on the D tier. But if Brian Wu is actually going to be like way owned, I may even bump them up to C tier because it's a 3-game slate. Normally on a 12-game slate, I'd bump them up 1 tier if the pitcher is very highly owned. But on a 3-game slate, I'm going to bump them up even more. So, Will, you back?
I'm good.
You're good. So we're talking about the Oakland A's and the Seattle Mariners. From a point per dollar perspective, I have to kind of put the Mariners on the B tier. I think they're going to be too highly owned to make it to the A tier. I'm not sure if there's any A tier teams, and I'm not sure if there's any F tier teams today. I'm not even sure if there are any D tier teams today. I think the A's, from a raw point projection, are the worst team on the slate. And I originally said that there's no F tier teams, so they would automatically start on the D tier. And because Wu may be 40+% owned, I got to move them up just for leverage purposes. And the Mariners, Sears is going to be owned, right? So I got to bump them up from a C tier over here, and they're the best point per dollar stack. But their ownership is also going to be high, so I can't put them in the A tier. Would you agree that the Mariners are a B tier stack and the A's are a C tier stack? Or do you think the A's are bad enough that, I mean, I know you're on more on Wu today, but do you think the A's are as worth less stacking as much as Singer is worth, like your opinion on Singer? Like, is the A's like, if you had 20 lineups, you wouldn't even bother making an A stack?
No. The A's. So here's the difference, right? I know it sounds crazy. The A's to me are way more important than Brady Singer. Like, even in 20 lineups, I'm probably getting at least 2 or 3 A stacks.
And Will is slow and frozen, and I have no idea. Will, are you back?
Can you hear me okay? Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Now I can.
Okay. I forgot to all right. I forgot to turn my hotspot on before we started. So I turned it on after I realized it cut out on me, I said, "Oh my god, I don't have my hotspot on." So I turned it on. But the A's are more important than Brady Sager for sure.
Okay. And how about the Mariners? Do you consider the Mariners a B tier stack?
Yeah, I for sure, because I think there's too much power in the lineup. So as much as I like JP Sears for his upside, it's the same thing with the Mariners. Like, they've got tons of upside. And I do think their lineup is improving as they've got more healthy, like getting JP Crawford and getting some of these guys back. It's definitely going to help their lineup. And Julio, his ISO is picking up a little bit against lefties, whereas earlier this season, I mean, it was just god awful. So, I think this thing is going to pick up here pretty soon. So I am going to be playing Seattle also. And I agree with where they're located on the chart.
Jeffrey Battaglia asked, do you like the 5-man stack on this slate still? I would suggest, first off, Jeffrey, because I consider this a teaching show, that you don't use the term like ever. I don't like anything. Do I like the 5-man stack? There are plenty of 5-man stacks that are profitable today. There are also 4-man stacks and 3-man stacks that are profitable today. In general, correlation helps your lineup, right? But there are instances where no team scores more than 4 runs today, and you're not going to need 5 guys from the same team, right? If some team scores 15 runs today, I'm pretty sure the 5-man stack, that's going to be the winner. So there are ranges of outcomes. There are outcomes where you're going to need a 5-man stack. There are outcomes where you're not going to need any stack. I mean, it's going to be 2-2, 1-1, whatever, right? So it's not just do you play this or do you play that, and do you like it? It's a 5-man stack more likely on a smaller slate than a larger slate? No, it's not it's more likely on a larger slate because there are more teams that are in play in order to put up a ton of runs. So typically the smaller slates, because it's only 3 games, there's only 6 teams, it's less likely that one of the teams puts up 15 or some amount of runs where 5 batters give you a ton of points. But on a 15-game slate, like if as a heuristic, you only 5-man stacked on DraftKings on large slates, like that would be the easiest way to, there are 4-man stack and 3-man stack lineups that are profitable, but there are way more 5-man stack lineups that are profitable because you got 30 teams to choose from, and someone is going to do enough that 5 batters gets there. Smaller slates, not so much. So let's go to the Cleveland Kansas City game. Tanner Bybee may be the highest owned pitcher on the slate. He may be over, especially in the smaller field, he may be like 60, 70% owned. So the Royals automatically, remember, there's no F tier today because you can play anyone. So the Royals automatically go to the C tier just from a leverage standpoint against the highest owned pitcher. And then we got the Guardians against Singer. I don't think many people are going to play Singer. I would put the Guardians initially, when I could find them, as an A tier team. But
I agree.
But due to ownership, maybe I bump it back down to the B tier. How do you think? Okay, here's the question. Do you think more people play Cleveland or more people play Toronto?
I definitely think more people are going to play Toronto, and it's not even close.
Okay, so I have to put the Guardians on an A tier from that perspective, because like the Toronto, I would put as the highest projected stack, but going to be the highest owned, so I got to bump them down to a B tier. And if that's the case, the Guardians become the A tier stack, even though Singer is probably not going to be all that owned. Here's the question about the Orioles. Kikuchi, I mean, he's going to be owned, but I don't think he's going to be heavily owned. I mean, he'll be 30%. I mean, for a 3-game slate,
relative to the slate,
right? I think the Baltimore Orioles, they're expensive, but their upside is clearly there. And Kikuchi obviously implodes at times. My natural inclination is that it's to stack the Blue Jays Orioles game. And then I don't know what to do with Cleveland. Like, to me, like, I don't get the Royals are appealing because I think Bybee is going to be very owned. I just take a look at this lineup, right? Where's the starting lineups page? I take a look at this lineup and like like outside of like Bobby Witt and Sal Perez, maybe. Like I just look at the
Jimmy P's
bottom.
been good this year. Yeah, but the bottom is definitely rough. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Like they're cheap, but the thing is that if you pay for cheap Royals, like who are you paying up for? Like you end up leaving like $3,000 in salary because we're talking about a stack, like a 5-man stack. I just feel like I wouldn't mind, for instance, Will, playing Bibee and then playing a Bobby Witt or a Sal Perez one-off.
Which you can absolutely do on this slate.
Right.
Like Bobby Witt could get on base. So let's say Bobby walks Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt steals the base, and then the inning ends, and then later on Bobby Witt hits a single and steals another base. Like he's still racked up enough to clear home run fantasy points. Like that's the thing. And guess what? The Royals could still only have scored 0 runs, and Bobby Witt could still put up double digits. Like that's the power of these versatile guys that can hit and run, you know.
If you consider the Guardians to be the A stack of the slate, because I think the Blue Jays will be the most owned. Right. I think after the Blue Jays will be the Mariners. I think the Mariners, really? I think Dylan Moore, Julian Rodriguez will be very
against Sears, I get it. Yeah,
but
sure.
If you were going to step, but Will, if you're going to stack the Guardians, how would you do it? I mean, you obviously have the money, so you can play. You can obviously Jose Ramirez is sitting right in there in the middle at third base, but you got 2 first basemen. You got Naylor, expensive, Manzardo, cheap. They're both first base eligible. Then you got a really cheap shortstop that, truthfully, at $2,200, you may not even need, and he really probably doesn't do much. Like I take a look at the Guardians lineup and go, like outside of like I don't even like playing Kwan because really like Kwan needs. They need to score like 12 runs for him to get there because he's not going to do anything other than like hit singles and shit, right? So like I look at this lineup and I go like how I almost feel like I'd rather just go Jimenez, Ramirez, Naylor, and then just stack 5 guys from some other team.
So let's talk through that, Blair, because that's exactly how I'm going to approach Cleveland today. Like I'm saying in the main core of Cleveland, right? So remember, I did say I'm going to play everybody. But in every Cleveland stat, I'll have Ramirez and Naylor. And then I'll have one with Kwan, one with Manzardo, one with Brennan, one with Sheeman, one with you get what I'm saying? Like but every Cleveland stack I play will have Ramirez and Naylor.
Excuse me. So if
then I will build around that.
Yeah, but then what do you do with Manzardo because he's also first base eligible?
He's the one guy will leave it. Now, on FanDuel, I can do it. I can pull it off. On DraftKings, I cannot. Yep.
So I'm making an executive decision that I'm bumping the Guardians down to a B tier just for the fact that it's kind of difficult to stack them positionally on this slate. Dude, it's a 3-game slate. Did people expect the tiers to be like, well, this team is obviously an F? Like it's packed. There's really no ace pitcher on the slate. There's really no gas can. Like there's no like absolute gas can on the slate. We don't have like an opener or some guy that's only going to pitch 40 pitches. And we don't have a game with 20-mile-an-hour winds on the outside. We're not playing in Coors Field. I think we could agree that out of all these things, do you think, okay, here's the last question for the slate. And I always ask these types of questions because when you build lineups, remember, we always talk about lineups, not players. Chalk pitchers versus chalk hitters. Would you rather play, like we have Tanner Bibee and Brian Wu as like the chalk? Would you rather play a lineup with both Bibee and Wu, but well, it's hard to play that and then stack a team that isn't owned. But here's the question. It's like, would you rather play 2 chalk pitchers, Bibee and Wu, or would you rather play chalk Toronto or Seattle? Like
I'd
which is,
probably
if you had to choose between it, like essentially this comes to the fact of like, who do you think is more overowned? Do you think the Blue Jays stack is more overowned? Like, if you'd rather play the chalk Toronto than play chalk Bybee, or would you rather play a team like Oakland and then still and play chalk pitchers, right? Like that. It's like, what kind of
okay.
construction like that are you looking at?
So, but I'm glad you asked this question because I'm gonna give you kind of my philosophy on small slate. So I said, hey, on this I play everybody, right? But I build from the bottom up. So, and I'm going to explain what I'm saying. On a 12-game slate, I'm going to be looking for the absolute best builds I can get from the top down. The Houstons, the Yankees, on big slates, I can afford to play good teams that have no ownership because teams are just going to get left out in the cold, right? But you can't play everybody. Okay. On small slates, Blender, we talked about this. You call them vomit stacks. I call it building from the bottom up. If the A's score 10 runs today and you don't have the A's, go ahead and close your laptop. You're not winning anything. But here's the kicker. Those of us that have the stomach to stack the A's, we win all the money because nobody wants to stack the A's. Nobody wants to, you get what I'm saying? So
right, but the question is that if would you rather on this slate on 3 games, would you rather we take a look at the starting lineups here? Do you prefer basically which one do you prefer? Tanner Bybee. You can only choose one in your lineup. Tanner Bybee or the Blue Jays. Which one would you rather have?
I'm going Bybee.
So you'd rather play a lineup with Bybee and no Blue Jays than a lineup that has Blue Jays with no Bybee.
Correct.
Okay. That's essentially are you prioritizing a chalk pitcher or are you prioritizing a chalk stack? And sometimes, I mean, a lot of times we'd both agree that the pitching is I'd rather play a chalk pitcher than a chalk stack. But
yeah,
it's also different than like if we replace this game with a Coors game with 2 gas cans and the total was 12.5 or 13, then it could be that maybe we're not prioritizing Bybee. We're prioritizing like the team that has like a 7 implied run total on a slate where the next best team is like nothing, right? So it's not it's all relative to the slate. None of these teams have that high of the highest implied team total is 4.29, which
that's
on a
what I was going to say. I don't think anybody's over 4.5. Yeah.
And we'd like to take a look at SimLabs. And if you're a premium subscriber, you get SimLabs. SimLabs, the last time I checked, loved stacking the Toronto-Baltimore game and playing both pitch and playing like Wu and Bybee and Sears. Like those combinations of those up and down, Wu, Bybee, Bybee, Sears, Wu, Sears, and a lot of like Baltimore plus Toronto. That's a lot in here. Not as much Cleveland, not as much Kansas City. Definitely under the field on Seattle. So that's just our Sims, right?
Yeah.
These are just like the top 150 based on, just bare defaults. I mean, like obviously, we don't even have lineups for the A's and the Mariners yet, so this could obviously change, and ownership could obviously change. But yeah, I think that may be what I'm doing today. I know Kikuchi has strikeout upside, but my 3 lineups may be. I may do like I'll do an Orioles lineup, a Blue Jays lineup, and then an Orioles Blue Jays combined lineup. And then my other team may be like the Guardians. And maybe I'm playing Sears against the Mariners. Maybe something like that. Even though I'm not a big fan of playing chalk Toronto, but it's Cade Povich, and he's really not a prospect. And
there you go.
This could go really badly. So like, if there's anything that could, because I look at the rest of the teams and I go, JP Sears is not good, but at least I know what you get with JP Sears. And it's not like the Mariners are that great either, right? But like the Blue Jays have people that could damage a pitcher in their lineup. I do have Vlad Guerrero plus 470 anytime home run. That was on FanDuel.
Okay.
So if you want to take that, if it's still available. Do you have any props that you want to? I know we're on the opposite sides of the woo stuff, but is there anything else maybe that you want to share with the folks?
Yeah, I took so I did have I did take Kikuchi less than 17.5 pitching outs also. Okay. So yeah, for this slate, those are
just for these three teams, right? Obviously, there's other stuff later today.
Yeah, those are pretty much my main exposure. I think I do have. Let me see if I got Bobby in there. No, I guess I think I faded Bobby. Yeah, so I took Wu over 16.5, and I took Kikuchi less than 17.5. That's pretty much all I got for this slate. Like that's pretty much everything I've got in. Yep.
People in the chat are talking. Yeah, obviously, it doesn't matter how long you're playing. You always ask questions. Questions are there's really no stupid questions, right? I just don't like terminologies of like. Like that's not something that you should do. You shouldn't do anything that you like. There should be some mathematical reason, some reason, some strategic reason to do anything that it's not just like. Like I have a premonition about something. But Rippin' Sippin' does say that the right thing. This is my first year actually understanding why fried chicken is the number one tier.
Oh man.
Right. I don't do the weird tier names on this show only because it's not we don't need to filibuster stuff with Dean for an hour and 15 minutes sometimes.
Yeah.
Imagine this slate if we had to talk about it for an hour and 15 minutes. Then we'd start. Then we'd be having food, tiers, and movie conversations plenty.
Yeah.
Right.
We'd also be pulling our hair out, whatever's left of it.
Okay. So, Will, you got what? Any other stuff you got going on this week? Appearances, articles.
Yeah.
Anything?
I'll be on Crunch Time later tonight. I'll be on the Morning Grind tomorrow, and then I'll be on Crunch Time over the weekend. So it looks like the company has decided to make me part of the Saturday weekend crew. So I've pretty much had shows on Saturdays every weekend, and so you can catch me there. And that's what I've got to close out the week. Crunch Time later today, and then Morning Grind tomorrow, and then Crunch Time over the weekend.
I'll be back tomorrow. Squirrel Patrol will be on tomorrow. Talking about MMA. We got a 14 fight card on Saturday here in Louisville, and I'm still not going because I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to pay $1,000 for a seat that you could actually see something. You could get in for $70. I mean, $70 plus fees, which is cheap for a UFC event. But then you're sitting in, section God knows where, and you might as well watch from home. So, I'm not going and sitting in the 300s for UFC here in Louisville. It's not even that great of a card anyway. But I'll be talking about that tomorrow with Squirrel Patrol. So check that out. Obviously, props and pick'em stuff. If you just want that on the site, we also have a package just for that. If you don't want to be a combo premium member, but that's what I would suggest to you. All the information is in the description. Click on that link below. Join Chiefs Prop Shop. It's free in our Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. And I'll be back like I always am, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, talking about all things you're thinking about. It's in Daily Fantasy, props and pick'em on RotoGrinders Today.